This is the People's Coach, Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West. Answering more questions today for the Power Project. A lot of you guys were involved in that CliffHanger question on who said the quote, making the world a better place to lift, and all of you were wrong. I finally got you guys with something. You fat nerds looking up shit on the internet all day could not find the information, even on the interwebs. But hopefully this was a lesson for a lot of you guys out there to realize that the interwebs is for more than just porn. Now, who said the great quote? Making the world a better place to lift. It was utilized by Mass Movement Incorporated, where I worked for a little while. My brother Chris worked there for a little while, and so did World WWE Champion John Cena. But the quote was said by Chris Bell, the director of Bigger, Stronger, Faster. So there you have it. That's the answer to that cliffhanger. Let me ask you another cliffhanger question here today. What are two cues on the bench that you actually physically can't do, but they help your elbow track properly, and they help keep your shoulders in place. So there's one thing on the way down and one thing on the way up that I talk about quite often here at the Power Project that you guys should know, but you actually physically can't do it. It's just a cue. It's just a verbal. It's an image to get in your head to help you visualize what you're supposed to be doing. We got some questions to get to here. We got one from Felix off of Facebook. He said him and a buddy are all fired up about powerlifting, and they're getting ready for their first powerlifting meet. Congratulations on that, and that's great that you signed up for a power meet. But him and his buddies want to know what to eat on game day. Anything kind of goes during a power meet. It's a long day. I would avoid trying to eat too much sugar, as a lot of guys, will shovel down lots of sugar, and you'll get a lot of highs and lows throughout the day. So you'd want to kind of avoid that. Hopefully, wherever you're lifting at has a vendor there or something like that, and you can gnaw down a hamburger or something. But anything goes. Very common to see granola bars, potato chips. It's very common to see things that contain quite a bit of salt. My favorite thing on game day is peanut M&Ms. And the reason for that is that they don't melt and they don't get all shitty. So even if it's hot, which it normally is, even if it's hot and sweaty and gross, your peanut M&Ms are still intact. Some people like Snickers bars and things like that. Again, have at it, have fun with it, eat whatever you'd like, but be careful before you go out and deadlift that you don't overeat. I think between a squat and a bench is a good time to load up on some food. Try to get that food in as quickly as you can. But anything goes, man. You can have pizza, you can have whatever you want. It's not going to affect your performance. And on that same note, while I've been dieting and a lot of other people, I've been asking a lot of questions about this diet, and you hear a lot of talk about diets all the time in terms of performance. I honestly don't really think it matters that much. I know I might get bashed for saying that, but in terms of performance, in terms of strictly performance, I don't think nutrition is the huge deal that everyone makes it out to be. It is important, but I think a lot of us, a lot of you athletes out there, a lot of strength athletes, you can follow a diet type thing as long as you're getting your protein in, as long as you're recovering from your workouts, probably at about 60 or 70%, and be totally fine and not have any real problems. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. There's a lot of guys that diet. There's a lot of guys that don't. There's a lot of guys that follow a very strict regimen, and there's a lot of guys that don't. Like, look at the mixed martial arts world. You got some guys that just kind of eat whatever they want. You got other guys who pay attention to it a little bit more. I think it only matters in the case of if you're getting yourself too fat and you're getting yourself unhealthy, or it would matter in the case of deficiencies, or maybe you're just too small or too skinny or too weak. to do well in your particular field. So you may need to be bigger, and being on a diet can help you be bigger and can help you be a little bit stronger. Being on a specific diet for that. But in terms of like overall performance, it's not like you're going to start eating a certain way and be like, oh my God, it's like this eating has made me so strong. If that was the case, then we would all be on a diet all the time. I've been following some sort of diet since I've gotten involved in this when I was a kid, but that has varied quite a bit. You know, when I was fatter, when I was 330, I would always make sure I get my protein in, but anything else went at that point. You know, it's like anything else can go down the old tubes there. It didn't really matter too much. The only thing is like I said, things will be compromised to a certain point. You compromise your health, and you will compromise your strength to a certain point. So on game day, the day of the meet, you know, have at it, have fun, eat whatever food you want. Just be a little bit cautious that you don't eat too much sugar. I'd also be cautious that you're not eating a bunch of weird stuff that you're not used to. Stick to the things that you're a little bit more used to. Let's see, we got another question here. This guy asked a question about being on a huge deficit. I've answered this question a bunch of times before. Not a great idea. 2 to 3 inch deficit's probably a better idea. Let's see what else we got here. The reason for that is, I mean, you don't want to be in such a horrible position that you're going to hurt yourself. I am a big fan of lifting like shit and being in these awkward positions and gutting it out and getting yourself out of those positions. But to a certain extent, the risk-to-benefit ratio becomes off the charts. This guy says, hey, is there any tips you got for a drug-free lifter that hit a plateau and wants to start to have things move forward again? Yeah, my tip would be get on lots of shit. You know, you don't really hear a lot of talk about this, but it is important. Clearly, it's harder to make gains for the drug-free crowd. However, one thing you have to realize that I would say to anyone, whether you're on stuff or off stuff, you said you've been training for several years and feel like you hit a wall. It is time to make some changes. You didn't really say what type of program you follow. You didn't really say what direction you want to go in, so it makes it very hard. But I'm a huge fan of the conjugate system, utilizing different exercises nearly every week or every other week in the max effort movements, and utilizing your dynamic day for speed, explosiveness, and form. To me, that's a recipe that will always work, whether you're on stuff, off stuff, whether you're chemically enhanced or not. That's a recipe that'll always work for everybody. I've seen it work for everybody. I've seen it firsthand. Although the gains can be a little bit slower, I've seen it work for people. So it's just time for you to make some changes in your workouts. If you're not doing the conjugate system, I would highly recommend it. You can get the Westside Barbell Book of Methods from Louis Simmons off of westsidebarbell.com. You can read some good articles off of EliteFTS.com. One written by Dave Tate, Periodization Bible Part 1 and 2. In my opinion, is the best laid out conjugate system that I've ever seen. That is a fantastic article. Also don't use your drug freeness as an excuse. I hear some guys sometimes will say, I'm not, not on all this shit, and you don't necessarily have to be to get stronger, to make progress. I know a lot of guys that compete in the drug-tested federations who have buttloads and buttloads of strength. I think that's it. I'm trying to look for another question here. Okay, this guy says he gets a weekly email from Andy Bolton. And Andy Bolton's in quotes because he doesn't know if it really comes from him or not. And he says that Andy Bolton does 3 weeks of speed pulls followed by 1 week of max effort. And he does a max effort triple or double on his deadlifting. And when he does his speed pulls, he likes to use bands and chains. And this guy wants to know, what kind of band or what kind of chain to use. I would say, you said here that you raw deadlift around 700 pounds. I would say that you want about 150 to 200 pounds of band tension from the top, and you want about 100 pounds or 50 pounds or something like that from the bottom. Be careful that your tension at the bottom isn't shitty. The platform we have in my gym, if we double up the mini bands, they'll snap, and we just go through too many mini bands. So it's a very similar setup that they have at Westside, but for us, we just go through too many bands, so I don't really pull that way. I'll use an average band looped over one time, and if I want more strain from the bottom, I'll simply add a little bit of chain weight, or simply add a little bit more bar weight. But you do want to have the bands or the chains kick in early. I think that's important. I think especially with band training, that's kind of the difference between bands and chains, is that the bands are supposed to kick in real early. Like in the squat, there's supposed to be band tension on the bar when you're in the hole even. So, and the opposite is true with chains. When you're using chains and you're benching or you're squatting or deadlifting, the chains are supposed to deload about 90%, maybe even almost 100% all the way when you're at the bottom of the lift. So that is it from supertraining.tv. I'm out of here.